people are seeing this for not the first time. Yeah, that's what I thought. It deserves it. I'm David Canfield of Family Fair. We have the two incredible stars of this incredible bonkers movie. So please give me a hand in welcoming first Margaret Qualley. Does it get old, guys?
I'm not mad. All right, how are you guys doing?
You didn't see the hands, but a number of these people are not seeing this movie for the first time.
Okay.
Yeah. I've got some repeats.
Wow.
Quite a few repeats.
Impressive. So for those who have just seen it, do you need a little time to process? It goes on for a few days.
I suppose the way to start is really, how does one react to a script like this? What do you remember at that time? Harley, the director, sent you the script and you're like, okay. What do you remember about that? Margaret?
I don't know. I was really taken by the script from the get. I thought it was super unique and adventurous and gutsy and
I mean, I said it earlier when we had the chance to be in the masterclass that, you know, it was very unique. We read a lot of things, and it isn't often that you're that surprised that of something that actually has depth and that takes you on a journey that's so unusual. Like really, where you're like, wow, this could be so amazing, and it could also be a fucking disaster. And it's true, like we didn't know until we were in Cannes, seeing it really for the first time through, where we kept looking at each other like, oh my God, it's working. You just don't know. I mean, conceptually, look at what it was, where it was taking you, and what it was asking you. So you didn't know, are people going to buy into it? Are they going to go on the journey, or is it going to be too much? Maybe it's all of those things. I don't know.
For the best, I think.
Yeah.
What do you remember about when you two first spoke about it? Like, I would imagine, given that you're not sharing the screen a ton, but your performances are so inextricably linked, how did you initially talk about the project together?
I mean, I think we approach things very similarly, and it didn't really take like lengthy dialogue. I think we got it. We were already on the same page. I did share recently, and I had forgotten about, that we did do this little exercise class in the beginning where it was a little ball exercise that was about trust, where we had to toss this heavy ball back and forth. And we were doing it more for the exercise, and then realized actually that it gave us this whole other layer of just experience. Yeah, I don't know. I think we just had a comfort level from the moment that we met.
I've admired Demi for a really long time, and she's like the best. I was super excited to work with her and to be able to like team up with her in any way. And I was even excited to like she was staying one floor above me. I thought that was really cool.
I thought we'd have more time to do things on the weekend, but in fact the weekends would come and we were both glued to the couch.
Yeah,
we couldn't move.
Yeah.
Seriously.
But yeah, I don't know. Our relationship was really sweet and easy, and that was the easiest part of making this movie.
Yes, that's true. I mean, Margaret did say at one point when we were both laying on the cold tile floor, nude, and she was going to have to drop her body on me and I had to crawl out was like, thank God we like each other, because this would be really awkward. And that is the truth. I mean, we really, I think, not only looked out for each other while we were working, because obviously we didn't have the luxury of having that many scenes together where we were both conscious, but, you know, but we still, based on how the schedule laid out, still worked almost every day. And so being able to kind of check in, have each other tap in, tap out, and like really made a huge difference in stepping into something that was so vulnerable and so raw, and so exposing on both of those levels.
So it's one thing to read a script this wild out there, brilliant, I think is a fair word to use. When you actually got to filming, were you surprised by what it asked of you, even if it was just emotional? Like, what was the experience like of actually starting to step into these characters and the physical demands alone of what Qualley was asking of you too?
What was the question? I mean, I think, you know, Qualley's very detailed. Her script was very detailed in terms of the visual ask. And I think the most important part was us really, you know, spending time before we ever stepped on the set to kind of really know the parameters on a physical level, so that we could then go separately to do our work on an emotional level. I think Qualley had a sense of what she wanted, but in terms of like what that required for each of us on that level was really kind of up to us.
How about you, Margaret? What were those first few days filming like?
I mean, the whole process was super unique for me. I mean, you know, before we started filming, I'm like learning this dance choreography. That was a big experience for me. It was
fitted for prosthetic boobs.
Yeah, lots of prosthetics and lots kind of in every place. And so, yeah, the first few days of filming, I feel like by that point, probably been working on the film for months, and it was exciting to just kind of start stamping things in. Yeah.
And you both had pretty extensive conversations with Qualley before even being formally cast, if I have that right. So, what were those conversations like? And particularly, I'm curious how you talked about your respective characters, even though you are one. What those were, you know, really particularly like, because it's a lot to ask.
I mean, I think, you know, it was very important, I think, for Qualley, one, to know that we were both all in, like that we really understood the kind of the depths of the kind of level of exposure that she was asking for from her, you know, two lead actresses. And so a lot of it was her really like spelling out that, and I think just look, this is very personal material for her in many respects, and you know, Elizabeth is Qualley, and Margaret Sue was the girl from the 90s that she always felt pitted against. And so I think that there was, her grip was very tight before offering it to either of us, or whoever she was going to offer it to. I mean, I personally had 6 meetings with her. I don't know how many of you had, Margaret. And I really appreciate how scary it was for her in letting go. You know, she really had a very specific way she wanted to tell this. So, did that answer that?
How many meetings did you have, Margaret?
I think I had, what's the less important part, I had 3 meetings I did. But I was also like doing another film at the same time that was, I couldn't, she ran out of opportunities to meet me. But I'm sure she would have wanted, I know she would have wanted a few more. Maybe I wouldn't be
just
here.
Like she always wanted another take. I mean, 15 takes of me smearing the makeup on my face. And she wanted another one.
And it's a very emotional scene.
Yes. Exactly.
With that scene, as you bring it up, it's the scene of the movie that's probably stuck with me the most. It's incredibly raw, and it has an impact, I think, in a way that brings a lot of the film together. Can you walk us through, especially knowing that it took that many takes, what that experience was like filming it so intensely, and getting to that place at the end where we can even see your face? There's a rawness to it, a physical rawness.
I mean, it was a painful scene. Because it's, she's at this crossroads where she's almost has the ability to step out of this self-imposed prison that she's boxed herself into. And in a way, to me, it's the most impactful because it's the most human. I think we've all had that moment of looking at ourselves, trying to make something better, only to make it worse, and then spiraling down into that depth of, hopefully not that horrible of self-loathing, but I think it's so relatable because we've all been there in some form or another. Shooting it was definitely kind of as painful as it felt. Just to be in that place, and again, it's that kind of odd intimacy that we can have with ourselves, where it's sometimes difficult being with ourselves, having to face ourselves.
When I rewatched the movie recently, I was struck by just how much of it takes place in the bathroom, in front of mirrors, where you're both really having to confront yourselves throughout the whole movie. That's got to be a unique kind of acting challenge.
It is very different. I mean, I was so relieved when we finally got to the scene where we were actually both conscious and, we were able to interact and have, that, because there's something so interesting to again, I think we all have been where we're alone, we're nude, we're looking at ourselves, we're dissecting, we're judging, we have a multitude of emotions, thoughts go on, and I think it's something that it's something you don't see very often.
Yeah. Margaret, I would love to know what those initial choices look like for you as Sue in terms of the dancing and the physicality, because very specific movements, I think, to sell that character.
So I didn't come up with the choreography. I don't think I ever could. But for me, it was one of those experiences. I don't know if anyone has ever experienced this, but when you're like in a dance class and you just want to cry, or you do cry. The director, it was one of my first days there, and I was like learning the choreography, and she was watching, and then I was dancing with all of these professional dancers that all knew the choreography, and they were all teaching it to me. It was like a nightmare. And I was like, oh yeah, that's what, we do this, and then this, and I was sober, and it was but yeah, I did just like, yeah, that looks good, I'm gonna be right back. And ran to the bathroom and cried for a while and came back, and then they had taken a note and I had a one-on-one lesson, and the director had left, and I learned the choreography that way, and then proceeded to just practice it on my own in my hotel room all the time, and try to get comfortable moving that way. And ultimately was really excited to shoot that scene because like the nature of the shooting process was so it was a really long, slow shoot, so like a lot of times we'd be shooting an 1/8 a page a day, and it ends up feeling kind of like, just like, okay, I stand here and I look this, and now I'm hot facing this way. And now, you have like a shot of my butt facing this way. So it was exciting to like do something, but then also totally terrifying and really challenging for me to do.
Pulled it off.
So, yeah, thanks.
Let's talk about the makeup chair. What was your experience like, each of you, like the amount of time it took, and what it felt like from there to act with the prosthetics? I think that the final act is a whole separate question, which we'll get to, but really just the initial stages to start.
For me, mine was anywhere from 6 to 9.5 hours in the chair. That really requires that you get very still, very zen. And you know, I would definitely say it's a much easier read on the paper. Just going, yes, prosthetics, oh, that's so fun. And I mean, I'm so grateful for
Now
this
I'm a monster.
I can do that, yes. And then to have so little time to shoot, it's a lot. It's a lot on your body. I mean, spending that time having to be, humped over, and at the same time, what I'll say is we had incredible, technicians and artists who created the makeup. They were extraordinary, and made a very uncomfortable, difficult process as, comfortable as possible. It's just very interesting, once it's all on, you can't really eat or drink because it's so delicate that it'll fall apart. It's like getting used to people touching you all day. Like people's hands around your face, your body, and then having to find that way of really letting it go so that you can jump into whatever you're doing. It's definitely, I don't know if every project with prosthetics is this extensive. I was just on a show with Colin Farrell talking about him doing the Penguin, and I'm just grateful I didn't turn into a jerk. He said he was really worried he was starting to become a jerk after 85 days. I get it. It's definitely an odd experience. Poor Margaret, had to do it where her time, getting ready was less, but you only had one eye and one ear.
That is her in the suit, we should say at the end there. Yes.
Yeah, that was like it was like 4 or 5 hours, 5 hours to get on, an hour and a half to get off. But it was hard because you couldn't hear anything. I could only see out of one eye, and I had to stay like this while I was in it, and I had no arms. So that was really taxing on my everything. Super hard. And then the worst part, this is a gory detail, was that I was often I'm meant to be crying in a lot of those scenes. So I'd be crying, and if you cry, this is disgusting. I've actually not said this before, but okay, so imagine okay, so you got something glued under your face, and you're you're okay, cool, yeah, now I'm having a mental breakdown. You start to have a mental breakdown, and then you're crying, and then the tears are collecting under the glue, and then the snot's collecting under the glue, and so then you just got this glued on mask of your own tears and snot. And then they're just trying to glue it on harder. and you're like, oh good, yeah. Why don't you just put some super glue in there and then just smash my own snot again? That's a good idea. I like this one. And you want me to do it a couple more times? That's what I want to do too. That's what I was also hoping for. I'm really glad that this will also take a couple hours to take off. Cool.
That's the acting school dream right there. That's what we get. That's what we work for.
I think the highlight is that she still made Margaret be in the suit when it was my face.
Oh, yeah. You put her face on me. I'm still in there. What the hell?
My week off.
You just left your face and
But literally that was my 1 week off. It was that week with the blood, which was 30 gallons, by the way. 30 gallons that the director herself wanted to operate with a fire hose. I'm looking at the faces sometimes watching the
theater,
film.
not dissimilar to this.
Yeah, literally just like this with the full. She was acting out maybe some of her aggression.
Amazing.
What else you got for us?
Well, all of this I think speaks
Now
to...
we're talking.
Sure, we're just getting started. All of this speaks to, I think, the unique brilliance of Qualley. You know, this is a movie that's extremely practical. Everything you're describing is because she didn't want to use digital, CGI, whatever you want to call it. It was all, you were all there, it was all happening. Can you talk a little bit more broadly about what it was like to work with her as a director and what it felt like to kind of bring these performances out with her?
What's interesting, you know, is that, again, she's a very visual director. She's already really seen how she wanted it, you know, to be with the colors, the sound design, which is incredible. It's really, as an actor, what was sometimes challenging is, you know, kind of the normal progression is somebody likes to start with a master shot, a wide. Everyone kind of figures out what they're doing. They'll have spatial awareness. Qualley often like to start here, where you're like, I don't know what am I doing, where am I going? For her, it was, and again, every director is unique. It's a very, you know, it's just a different part of how, you know, for her, she found the wide shots to be, in some cases, almost superfluous to what she was looking for. And you can see, I mean, after, like, we wrapped principal photography, she spent a month shooting inserts. All of that, like, you know, and I think it is part of her unique way of storytelling. I think she's a very visual symbolic. I think, you know, I think the actor's part of it is not as, I think, not that she doesn't think we're important. I think she just, it's not necessarily where she's as focused. So a lot of, you know, in terms of kind of bringing more layers to the character really was left in a way more to us, which again is not, I don't say it as good or bad, right or wrong, it's just kind of different than what it was.
Did you find that freeing, Margaret, or was it challenging to kind of figure out how to work with that?
I don't know, I think like, you know, you kind of figure out the tone, the kind of, basically I think I figured out pretty quickly that she basically wants it like 100% all the time, like the most exaggerated version of whatever you're feeling, the biggest that it could be, and so then you're just like going for that and trying to make it also come from like a grounded place, but once you kind of understand the assignment,
But I think to Qualley's credit, I think that she chose actors that she knew from taking so much time with us beforehand to be able to deliver that level of humanity so that it didn't become like two-dimensional or cardboard cutouts.
She knew what she wanted. Yeah. So as we've opened, there's a lot of fans of this movie out there. It's performed extremely well since its release. How have you both observed the life of this movie? Have you gotten to watch it with audiences?